everyone. My name is Ashish Kaushal. I'm the CEO of a staffing firm called Hire Talent and founder of Conscious Unbiased, an organization focused on unlocking the power of your people in the workplace. Today's conversation, I know everyone's been talking about AI, so we're going to cover leading in the age of AI. AI is changing the way who does work and how it gets done. It's changing workplace culture, how we engage with colleagues, and what is required for effective leadership. We have an amazing group of panelists today here to talk about what effective leadership looks like in the AI era. Now let's introduce our special guest. It's Dr. Bazigos, managing partner of Mentor Labs, founder of Culture Shifts Consulting, and professor of organizational AI at Columbia University. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be on.
He'll be on soon on video. Elena Karen, award-winning tech leader, author, and speaker of ex-Google.
Thank you.
Welcome. Kendall Parmer, founder of Me and AI. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Brian Perrett, Academy Director, Codebox Technology Corporation.
Greetings, family.
Welcome. And then Natalie Benamo, founder and CEO of HerSuite.
Welcome. Hello.
Welcome. It's happy to have you on the show. What do you think is the most important things leaders need to know to effectively lead in the age of AI? Brian, do you want to go first?
Certainly. When I think about when we're leading in AI, the most important thing for us to realize is that AI doesn't lack intelligence. It most often lacks context. In 2026, leadership is no longer about having all the answers. It's about having the best questions. You have to move from being a commander to more of an orchestrator. Your job is to define the why and the what and let the AI handle the how. Right? And if you can't translate a business problem into a clear, contextual prompt, then you're going to find yourself having troubles really quickly in 2026. Thanks for the opening.
So you're saying we need to be better prompt engineers?
100%. And that comes from our human skills, our ability to communicate our thoughts and feelings effectively in this beautiful English language.
Interesting. Kendall, your thoughts?
I agree with Brian. I suppose even there's been a lot of hype this week about this Moltbot or Claudebot, which is an agent that does everything for you in simple terms. But for me, it is about the relationships that we're forming with AI that we won't admit. Mm-hmm. The secrets that we tell AI that we wouldn't tell to our partner and we wouldn't tell to our boss. So when you look at agentic AI and the fact that not only are we forming relationships, they're going to do things on our behalf, the relationship that we're building is key.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And Michael?
I think that people focus a lot these days on the dehumanizing aspects of AI, sort of there's a bright side and a dark side to everything. And there's
I guess we'll get him back in a second. Natalie, you want to go next? Natalie? You're on mute.
Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't sure. I think we had a moment. I think the most important thing we're entering, and I want to quote Julie Sweet last week at Davos, the CEO of Accenture, said that humans need to be in the lead and not in the loop. And I think that when we think about it in that context, it's really important to remember that it is a tool, like Brian was saying, but we have to be in it with our intellectual knowledge and recognize and not let that get forgotten.
I like the idea of being a leader of the AI itself, right? There's this tendency this wants maybe abdicate some responsibilities to this powerful tool. I think what you're talking on is making sure we grab the leadership over the tools themselves.
Yes, exactly.
100%. And Elena?
Yeah, I talk to a lot of employees, and for them, what they see is their leadership just using AI as a buzzword, as go do the AI things, use the AI, build the AI. And they're really feeling like their leadership doesn't even know what they're talking about.
Mm.
They haven't touched the AI. They haven't used the AI. They have no idea of the AI's capabilities. And I think that every leader needs to know first that employees are thinking that. So maybe you do have a greater understanding, but they don't see it. And secondly, if you are treating this as one of those initiatives that's more your employee's job than your job, I think it's time to recheck that, given how transformative it is to the workplace and probably the things that you'd be missing about implementing it most effectively.
You know, Elena, it's funny that you talk about implementing in the most effective way, because I remember when the internet first started, it was like a toy, right? We could basically Google stuff and then, or Yahoo stuff at the time, I guess, Mosaic, and then we'd find pictures, and then eventually we got videos. And so people stopped working at work because they were basically looking at like videos and other things. And so then we had to get firewalls that restricted access to different areas of the web that we shouldn't be looking at during work so it could actually work. And so now this year, like last year, we talked about AI, and it was not surprising me that there's a report saying that people were less productive, because we said, here's this toy, use it, be productive. And we're like, oh my God, this is a relationship. Let me talk to him about what I'm feeling. Why did my boss say that to me today, right? Or let me see how to build this like graphic that I could never use Photoshop before. So I'm just gonna play around and screw around and stuff. And so we gave them this powerful tool, but never told them how to use it and how it could be effective for us. And so no duh, it wasn't effective last year. It is very effective. We just haven't.
Also, we sort of created an environment where we were like, and maybe if it's really good, we'll fire you all.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Like, where's the incentive there?
Yeah.
Why
Right?
would you?
There's no trust.
Why
Right.
would you?
When we started the year with these narratives that we're not going to have software engineers and that jobs are going to be completely replaced. And I think we ended the year seeing these as highly powerful tools to support and create opportunities.
Yeah, and going
Yeah,
back to
but
what you said, it's not like you're gonna get fired if you don't learn how to use this. So we're gonna spend all our time learning how to use this and not actually work. Right?
Yeah, but it works the other way with shadow AI, is that everyone's using AI, but not telling the companies that what they're using, and we're all using different models, and therefore all of the intelligence is going out the door.
Yeah.
So it's working that way. And then with these new kind of agentic AIs that will be individualized, you kind of have shadow delegation, where I'll be working for the company, but my bot is actually working on behalf of me. So it works the other way, just as much as it works for the company.
And even what you're saying, Kendall, there is like some companies haven't paid for their users to have this, and so their teams to have this, and so
They get it themselves.
so
We
I'm
work
getting
on
on
the
the
system.
side, and then we're basically putting all the corporate data into the network.
That's it. All the company data going out up to for us all to share. So it's working the other way just as much. And it is about trust at the end of the day. You know,
Yeah.
how do we build it with AI?
Yeah, and so I feel like the framework needs to be put in. I literally just saw an article yesterday that one of the senior members of the Defense Department basically put up all these cybersecurity details into ChatGPT to get some answers. And so now it's out there for 700 million users to figure out what the US government's doing. And so we just haven't built a framework on how to train our people. I think that's part of it. But
Yeah.
I might have taken you guys off track a little bit. What are some of the AI trends in 2026 for leaders to watch?
Well, I've got one that links very closely to this. I was at an event recently with a bunch of leaders, and they were talking about an inability to understand the quality of their employees. That they would hire people, the people got through interviews heavily aided by AI. They were now producing initial product heavily aided by AI. And like, just logically, now, is your employee performing well, or is AI performing well? And it was interesting logic, because you could ask a couple questions there, like, well, does it matter as long as like the overall package is good?
Right.
But there were problems where then people would get in the room, those employees would get in the room and they would know nothing.
Yes.
So they would like fall apart in a meeting. And so I think there's an interesting trend here, both about HR rules and how we grok this, but also what it makes a good employee in this era, what you still expect from them in meetings versus separate, et cetera.
Yeah, and this is something I spend a lot of time in the workforce, you know, working with people who are hiring teams that are leveraging these AIs, and on the other end, working with people who are trying to stand out from the crowd of all these AI generated resumes. And what it is about there, Alana, you were so right. It's about verification that this is an actual real experience and the demonstration of those skill sets. And the most important one is that human to human skill set that I think we need to show.
So Brian, what you're telling me is AI is making it harder to hire because we can't figure out if somebody's qualified.
Like any
Or the other
significantly
way,
advanced technology,
harder to get a job.
it makes it harder to
Right,
hire,
right.
but it also makes us, many ways able to assess our hires better. Like any powerful technology is going to create problems and sometimes going to create solutions to go with those problems, right? So I know people who are leveraging AI to help them sort out through the noise, to help identify the signals that may be the potential candidates. Like the real challenge is when the most powerful tools have been created in the last 6 months, what are the skills and the experience that we're looking for in an individual to add to our team to bring value as soon as possible, knowing the next most powerful set of tools is on the horizon in the next 6 months.
Absolutely.
Well, I think what we're also talking about here in terms of trust is the speed of change that's happening. So Brian, you mentioned, the last 6 months, but in the last week, everything is changing with the way buyers are understanding. And now yesterday, Google and Chrome announced that Gemini can go out and just search the internet for you while you're doing other things. And that's a whole new capability. So with the capabilities happening so fast, people are having trouble staying up to speed with it. And I think in the workplace, like Alana was mentioning, there's these disconnects, and it comes back to the trust in human interaction. Even though the tools are great, we still have to be driving those tools. So, and understanding what's happening in the back end.
Yeah. Kendall, how are leaders building teams with modern AI tools?
Well, I think what's really interesting to me is, I think it was about a week ago that Claude, the Microsoft Anthropic one, brought out a constitution, and for Claude, which was it's about 50 plus pages, but it for me it was kind of a mind-blowing moment. 50 pages on the character, just the character of Claude. I mean, it's worth a read, but it just showed me just how this kind of commodity of a large language models, that 1 month one's a bit better because of this, another month another one's a bit better because of this, but actually what is the biggest differentiator? And so for leaders, that whole, these are leadership skills. So in that Claude constitution, it's talking to Claude, what do we want Claude to be? Self-awareness is a big one they're looking at. They're looking at the ability for Claude to make mistakes, the ability for Claude to challenge. These are the key skills that we all look for in relationships, whether they're at home or at work, or from a leader or from your partner. And they're the things that, for me, when I started in this game using natural language processing and looking at relationships, the AI was very much to look at patterns and give us insights. Now the AI is so good at relating and talking to us. It kind of has gone, for me in my field, the other way, which is how do people Gen Z, Gen A have relationships when these things are just so good to you and so open, and yet human relationships are so messy. You don't get the best leader. It's impossible because we can't, we're infallible. That's fallible we are. So yeah, I think this whole thing of relating to AI and how leaders are relating themselves, and we're all telling it secrets. I suppose the secrets bit is the bit that I'm really interested in. The secrets that we tell it. So yes, leaders have got to really look at their own relationships with AI and really understand the relationships that people are creating with AI, both inside and the shadow AI, which is key.
So Kendall, when we get this inference down better in the next year or so, and AI is able to judge us, do you think we'll go back to our relationships?
Well, no, they become even more important, but it's those, how do leaders, the testing bits where you're giving somebody feedback, where you're having those difficult conversations, all these things that we all find so difficult, that when we're talking to AI, it's not judging us. The number one, I get stories mainly from men about the secrets they tell AI. Why doesn't the mental health system work for men? Is because they're not judged.
Yeah.
And we all judge each other. You can't, when you learn to be a therapist, you get told to have a clean slate. Well, it's impossible to have a clean slate because we all have our own biases, our own experiences. So the human bit should be, the messy bit is the bit that we need to embrace the most.
I agree.
I like that.
Any of your thoughts?
Who did you?
Who did you say?
Oh,
Your thoughts, Brian, or
I'll let Brian answer.
Oh yeah, the thing that I really liked about what Kendall said is really focus on the messy bits, right? AI is really strong at quantifying the quantifiable.
Yeah.
So much, right? So much about what makes the human experience precious is unquantifiable as of yet. And it happens in those moments between people. I look at the history of my greatest relationships and the best deals, and I imagine my fellow panelists have had similar experiences. The best outcomes haven't come when I can communicate something that is quantified, but when I have to qualify something with my humanity and show value in a way that's never been shown before. And with AI, when we have the ability to let a machine do the quantifying, it allows us as a human, to what Kendall said, embrace the messy.
And Michael, welcome. Sorry, Natalie, go ahead. You're gonna have a thought.
I was just gonna say we have some good comments in the chat from two people that are with us live about this, about how AI is very good at learning, but it doesn't do your thinking for you. So it kind of builds on, this relationship piece of it, but also as we think about the broader picture, we still need to be, as I said earlier, in driving this conversation, whether it's having your secret conversations like Kendall is talking about.
I think she froze for a second. Michael, speaking of AI and cultural and organizational psychology, I think people aren't thinking as much. They're assuming that AI is correct. Isn't it important as a leader that we teach them to still question and think about the results they're getting and the responses?
Yeah, absolutely. At Mentora Labs, we've been asking, how do we actually help leaders grow and not just tell them, what to work out? So one thing we've developed is what we call micro practice simulations. We use AI, but think of it like a batting cage or a tennis ball machine. You don't get better at hitting a curveball by reading about it. You get better through repetition. And leadership is the same way, it turns out. They're small actions, a number of them, we've cataloged them. And if you string them together in the right context, in the right situation, you get a different result than what you probably were getting before that. So we feed leaders brief descriptions of real situations, a difficult conversation, a moment of team conflict, a strategic decision point, what have you. And then they respond either by typing or speaking. The AI responds back in a way that a real human would, not scripted, not predictable, and after 3 exchanges, the leader gets targeted feedback on how they handled it. They also get a number, between 1 and 5, an assessment number, and their goal becomes getting up to level 4, level 5 in the way that they respond to these situations. So that's a different, and we're building a library of these leadership capabilities you can practice, delivering a hard message, having a difficult conversation, giving feedback, making decisions, influencing others, motivating others. These are moments that actually, these are the critical moments, the moments at the rock face. They only take about 30 seconds, but if you get it right, that defines leadership, and that can move the needle for you in a very significant way, because it's become muscle memory. Actually, it's become cognitive memory, cognitive emotional memory, and you now get reps on them in 5 minutes between meetings. It meets you in the flow of work.
Oh, interesting.
That's something we could not have done by, leadership development, I think, is broken in its current form. People are given 19 competencies and they're sent to 19 or 15 different workshops. And, it's an act of extreme coincidence when the workshop they went to, when an event at work matches the workshop they just went to when memory is still resident and they haven't lost 50% of their workshop knowledge within the first hour. So this is different. It's available, always on, available all the time. And that's something, that's a benefit that AI has that, traditional training doesn't.
Absolutely. Elena, your thoughts on how leaders are building teams with modern AI tools?
Well, I think it's interesting because I felt a little bit like the minute there was this huge AI battle to fight, they threw out everything they'd learned about building teams over the last however many years. And they just went, especially in tech companies, back to like war mode, right? Like grab just these like 5 top engineers, get in a war room, don't let them out for months. And I think they didn't know a better way. I think that they knew that had worked in the past. And in fact, some of them have glory days stories. A lot of the leaders grew up in that environment and believe it works. But it doesn't sustain. And so I do think when I think about how they're going to build teams in the AI era, I think some of the things we learned about like the different types of people and the different perspectives. And, you want someone who actually cares about other people on the team. You want someone who does focus on the data and can see holes in the data. You want someone who's maybe lived outside of the bubble that you're within and brings a different perspective for the products. Like you want all of those things still. And I think it kind of got thrown out, maybe even thinking AI could replace it. And I don't think we're seeing that because AI is trained by the same set of people who are building it, essentially. They've got different characters to them and different things the main companies have focused on. And so you do see some differences between them. But it doesn't really get out of the fact that only a certain percentage of the world has trained them on a certain percent of the world's information.
Yeah.
And so I do think you are going to have to get back to thinking how to build balanced teams to deliver the best products.
Yeah.
Just a quick thought, Ashish, and just from what Alana said, I remember doing a lot of work on Gallup's Q12 of the things that make a great team. Yeah, and one of the things that I did in my work for the best companies to work for, and kind of culture lists, was number one, I have a best friend at work. That was one of the biggest things that made you like the company that you worked in, that you've got a best friend at work. So this really interesting thinking about teams, to think when AI is half of the team, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Really change.
You're not going to join eyes with the AI mid-meeting and roll your eyes. Like you're not going to like chat with the AI and be like, what a stupid comment, right? Like during the meeting. So some of that
I do though, Alana, I do roll my eyes with the AI. I'm sorry, I'm going to admit it.
Oh,
I think,
I use the best manners with AI.
I don't know. It doesn't
I wonder, like,
joy.
if we're supposed to get, so like, let's go back to Julie Sweet's message, right? She said anyone who doesn't learn AI at Accenture is going to get fired, right? So on the one side, like, is there a messaging issue too? Because like you as a leader need to get your team to use the AI to make it more productive for your business, right? And so they can become more productive. It's not going to replace them. But yet when AI started, all the messaging was, this is going to take your job away from you, right? It's going to make everyone unemployed. It's going to, but then on the other side, then you're hearing about all this abundance, right? And I'm like, is it abundance by people who created this, or is it abundance? So if you create all this, how are you going to get people as leaders?
There's a middle road between those. And so I worked, my most recent, corporate gig was at Accenture. I was global managing director for organizational analytics. I know Julie. And so there was this middle ground, right? And so first people were saying exactly what Ashish just said. It's going to take your job away. Then there were these people that came along. There was a messaging that came along that said, no, AI is not going to take your job away, but somebody who knows how to use AI that does your job might. And that was the sort of the scare tactic. And then, Julie has recently come in with the force majeure, or, ham-fisted tactic.
Michael, I think that's a great point. I think that's something we need to point out, because oftentimes we see these big stories in the media, thousands of employees laid off, right? to focus on AI, but the part that I rarely see in there is the next sentence that says the company is investing in people who have AI skills, right? So when we hear about investments in AI at a corporate level, those are real people with real jobs. Like we cite a recent IBM study that showed they had to rehire the exact same number of people that they laid off, and the jobs that were created were at a higher income level than the ones that they laid off, right? This is showing how at an institutional level, when deployed strategically, AI can create opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you have to think about when people are getting laid off, it's the company, there's a reason, there's a financial reason for why they are laying people off. And the idea that you have a finance problem, you're not making revenue happen. And so to cut, the fastest way is just to cut your overhead, right? So you're going to cut people. And then you think you're going to layer technology on. Technology can't solve your challenge if you don't know the problem. Why is it that your revenue is stalled? Why is it that you are not making the numbers?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that's not, building on what Brian's saying is like, there's also that piece that's being missed out because sure, okay, we're going to get rid of all the entry level. What's going to happen when there's no managers in the next gen, right? What's going to happen?
And you know what, Natalie, like in those people that were laid off, there are people who were awesome workers, were really loyal, who loved coming to work, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we're seeing in 2026, and it's been a real focus for us at CodeBox Academy. Rather than laying off your best workers, train them with the new skill set before they go obsolete, right? Take your best employees and make them better.
So Brian, speaking of that, we're in this age of where modern powerful tools are less than a year old. So we're all entry level at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So how does that seniority impact the way AI is democratizing?
Yeah, thank you, Ashish. I spent a lot of time thinking about this in the context of what Alana was talking about, building teams. When we think about how teams are composed, historically, teams, there was a seniority involved, right? And in order to be a senior, you had to go through these tasks and created this scar tissue. And through that resilience, you got enough problems to become a senior. Yeah. Right. But now technology is managing a lot of those mundane tasks that I did as I went from junior developer to senior developer. So now how does somebody entering in gain the experience that they need to be a senior? And on the other end, like as a standard engineer, I learned grit and how to keep knocking at a problem. Some of those habits are maladaptive with AI when I'd be more suited to having an open mind and going and leaning on a tool. So one thing that we're seeing at CodeBox Academy as we partner with large corporations and help them build teams, we're finding them pair some of their senior assets who they find really valuable, have that institutional knowledge, pairing them with the youngest, the brightest, the most open-minded, the highest soft skill individuals who can use not only the current AI tools, but what they're really looking for is individuals who have that demonstrated the ability to learn the new tool that's coming 6 months from now. Right. And the cool part about this is, and this is where I really want to, anybody who's out there who builds a team, I really want to encourage you to relook how you define the quality of your hires. With these AI tools, there are individuals and they may not have college degrees. They may not be well educated, but they will have curiosity. They may have learned things through life that give them a resilience and a skill set that brings a unique and valuable perspective to your team. Right, at CodeBox, we use AI to elevate these individuals, and they are now adding value to some of our partners' newest and most formidable teams right now. So that's what I think about in 2026. How are we going to define what seniority means when the tools are less than 6 months old? And how do we redefine what a good hire is to democratize access to technology for our entire communities? I think there's tremendous opportunity where we have some of the best and brightest people here. And if they were just given the opportunity, they could succeed.
Interesting. Michael, you talked about micro practice simulations for a second, providing personal assessments. Can you share, well, there's two questions I have on this. One, can you share more how it leverages AI to help leaders grow? But number two is, how can we leverage that so that I, as an individual employee, don't keep going down rabbit holes with AI, because I could get sucked into something, just keep getting and not be productive because I'm just enamored by whatever I read through and just want to keep going deeper.
Yeah, well, that gets to let me answer the second question first. The second question is writ large. It's a problem for companies that bring in AI. They say we're bringing in AI. Well, how are you bringing AI? And most importantly, why are you bringing it in? There's very seldom a very focused business case, specific as a collection of specific use cases that have been strategically linked to those drivers in the company that would produce revenue. Back to Natalie's point. And in the beginning, companies like KPMG and PwC were making these announcements about how many billions of dollars they were spending to bring OpenAI's Claude GPT.
Yeah.
That's really funny. ChatGPT into their organizations, and they were bragging about the number of licenses they were bringing, a license for everybody. Well, that's one strategy, and it turns out not to work. The data's in. Very few companies have gotten revenue lift out of doing it in a generic fashion. All of the evidence is, there's a McKinsey study that has come out on this, where they reviewed AI's business progress in 2025, its ability to affect organizations and create positive change. Most organizations have focused on cost cutting and productivity. Those organizations that focus on innovation and revenue growth, growing the top line, not just cutting costs to get to a better bottom line, were the organizations that had better than a 5% EBIT lift, earnings before interest and taxes, specifically due to AI. Compared to all other companies that were bringing it in. Make no mistake, about 88% of companies are now, when they're surveyed, they say that they've brought AI in. That means a whole bunch of different things. The companies that get it right are companies that bring it in. They have very specific use cases in mind, like pharmaceuticals have brought in AlphaFold. And they are now creating new molecular entities that they are discovering because computers can fold proteins like nobody can. And they are coming up with thousands of new kinds of things that are being massively tested right now. The future is very bright on that front. That's because, and the pharma's pipelines for phase 1 clinical trials is exploding. Because of the innovation that they've been able to foment, and it's a very focused use case. That's completely different than PwC bringing in licenses for every person in their organization and hoping that, if I let 1,000 flowers bloom, something good will happen.
So you're saying spray and pray AI doesn't work, but strategic AI gives you increased EBITDA?
Yeah. And I think you asked about individuals. What can individuals do? That was the beginning of your question. What individuals can do is just looking around, figuring out how work works in their particular domain of influence, what things they can influence, and figuring out personally how they can apply or how they can suggest that their unit applies AI in a way that makes a consequential difference to how things are doing. This is more that goes beyond just question answering or giving information. There are now people and organizations that are building their own information systems, doing what is called vibe coding. That's just basically writing plain English text, but they think computationally. So if you're able to write in English and break a process down into its component parts, sequence them correctly, to make it really visible to the machine how things work, you can get a really good product, and you can get something that can actually replace dashboards. Think about dashboards. Dashboards were the magic until now. And the logic behind that is, if we give a bunch of executives a colored dashboard with lines and bars with different colors, and they stare at it long enough, they will get an insight. It will come to them. Well, that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is training an AI capability to go and research the same data sources and come up with a super specific answer that tells you exactly what you wanted to know without having to put dashboards in front of executives, give them availability that they ignore anyway.
Great points.
Natalie? I'd like to add, oh, sorry, Natalie, do you want to go?
No, Kendra, go ahead.
Well, I just linked to something Brian and so Michael's talking about use cases and making them so, because that's when AI is at its best, the specifics.
Mhm.
And Brian, you're talking about the kind of mismatch of skills, and the more that you put them together, from the strategic doesn't work top down. So instead of it being bottom up, put it together. But if you think about all the innovations, they don't come through procurement. You remember Slack, it
Mhm.
all comes through people, not procurement.
Mhm.
Because we all want to be more productive or get things sorted for ourselves. So I suppose we often look at the top down and they're taking our jobs, but innovation walks through the door with people because we're using things to make our lives more effective.
Yeah.
So watching the way that Gen Z use AI, I mean, it just blows my mind. I mean, my son recently was going for a job. It was all AI focused and he had an avatar to talk to, but he's talking to AI to answer the questions that the AI is asking him. Doesn't think anything of it. So AI is ending up talking to AI, but it's like we're all using AI. So this shadow AI and these kind of, new things coming out like Maltbot, which was literally like this week and last week, are mind blowing, but that people have their own agents working for them.
What's Moltbot?
It's called Maltbot, and it was just Malt. It was called Claudebot, but they've changed it to Malt, as in if you malt, MOLT bot. But it's just having an agent that works for you. But people will be bringing those into the workplace.
Yeah.
So you won't know who's on the team. It's not even team and AI. It will be somebody. It's me, but actually I've got my bot working for me.
Well,
So-
Kendall, you're talking about bringing bots into, bringing agents into work. It raises another interesting question. I may not have been on camera, but I was listening earlier when we were talking about trust. And here's the thing: you can have a company can build an agent that is smart enough to go around, query a bunch of different databases in the company, and bring it back in. But that's where things can fall apart if there hasn't been really strong data governance. No,
Totally.
security, of course, but data governance, meaning everybody, the entire organization collects data in the same way, structures it in the same way, and it means the same thing across all parts of the organization. That's not the case in organizations currently. They have not really had a unified approach, a centralized approach to data governance. And so a bot can go out, query a bunch of databases, and highlight discrepancies between it. They're good for that. But if they try to build an answer based on what they're getting, it might or might not fit reality because of the data fragmentation that exists inside organizations, particularly large
Michael, that
ones.
goes back to the question. Like we have to question the results we get, right? We still have to, because you don't know.
That cuts to trust.
Well,
Thank you for
Yeah,
closing.
and like completing the story of trust.
Trust.
Yeah.
I think like trust is a story, and one thing that we find is it's Michael, what you said, you got to have that complete data governance and manage it internally. But to complete the story of trust, you also have to communicate that clearly to your customer, right? And be open and be transparent, and where necessary, be vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. Natalie, as a founder of Her C-Suite, there's some ways leaders can help businesses be more visible in the AI era. Can you kind of talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think it is about this idea of trust, right? And I'll give you an example. If you used to go and search online and find what you're looking for, and now buyer behaviors have changed in the last 2 weeks with the ability to buy right in Chrome, and now with Chrome going out, now Gemini is going out and finding these things for you, so you're not even like doing that. But now you put in, I want a pair of tennis shoes, and it serves you up 3 pairs of tennis shoes, and you hit buy. You are no longer going to a website. So this concept of people, search engine, everyone has this idea of like SEO. No, people, what got us here is not going to take us there. And there is no more SEO. Even AEO on a website is the new thing where you're answering questions, right? And you have to have that now more than ever, especially with Gemini going out and finding things right. If you don't have the question format. But most businesses are not aware of this. They have the old traditional websites. They think if I build it, they will come. And so businesses today, they're not going to be relevant because they're not going to be found.
That's a great point.
In 6 to 12 months, they're there you have to have different levers to pull to build your trust, and you
Mhm.
can't rely on inbound. You have to
And
go
AI,
outbound and
yes.
Yeah.
and solve the comes back to that solving the problem and building relationships and going in different places to solve the problem to get the visibility. You can have, owners of companies speaking like we are today, or you can, get your visibility in different ways. But the way
And
that
the
we used to buy
and the
is not the way we're buying.
Mhm.
And the way, Natalie, that because it's called a generative engine optimization because it's within
Yes.
generative AI, and the way
Yes.
it falls is very different because it's not about eyeballs anymore. It's about an authoritative voice.
Mhm.
So
So the way that you have an authority in your sphere is the way that it
Yes.
will bring you up as one of the things that it's talking about. So it's a very different mindset.
me as a
Right,
It is
brand,
Rachel,
very
and
me as a brand,
Oh, go ahead, Ashish.
a shirt, like advertising to you as a shirt, I have to advertise to the bot or to AI
Yes.
and make my shirt attractive to the AI to pick it up and show us.
Well, it's you
Exactly.
have to have the right questions that people are asking. So where would I go to find this type of shirt?
Mhm.
That's the question you have to have on in your sphere to be able to be tracked. But I do think that this visibility thing goes beyond that. It's about building trust. And so in the days of when a website would go down and it would come back and you'd be like, oh, it's down, it's got a system error. Now when it goes down, it's a bigger deal, right? So there's
Yeah.
all these little things that add up to you stop trusting, aside from, all of the AI slop that we talk about and all.
Michael, you were
Well,
going to say?
trust is one thing. Yeah, trust is one thing. And then when we talk about AI optimization, there are overt and covert strategies that people can use. So there's such a thing as I'll start with resume reading. So we all know that machines now read resumes. Some people have clever people have figured out that if you can type a plain English sentence, you might want to disguise it by making all the letter O's into zeros, and putting 3s for Z's and so forth. But if you do that and then you color it white and you plop it onto a website about you or a resume page, that still gets picked up and read as characters. It still gets converted into digital, into ones and zeros, and it gets read and it gets input, and you can actually elevate your position among a bunch of resumes, or elevate your website among a bunch of websites when machine reading is being done. It's not
Interesting.
necessarily ethical, but it's out there, and that's but one of several different strategies of that type that are hidden. Now, hiring companies, employers have gotten more sophisticated, and they now have filters that will identify people who are trying to do what I just said. So it could work. There's a 50-50 chance these days that it could work against you just as well as it could work for you.
My
So
question
you
for
could
you
use
though
that.
there, Michael, because when I hear that, I think if you're skilled enough to do this, I probably want you on my team.
Well,
Yeah, do you have a
thank you.
website listing all these different things we could do to get around?
No, I've picked them up over time. But Brian, bang on. So I teach at Columbia also. There was a Columbia student last year. Get this one. Many of the big tech companies put entry-level employees through a coding test, an online coding test, and they have a little camera there. You have to put your camera on to show so they can see that you're not doing anything. This guy, he was a junior at Columbia College, not even graduate school. He invented a way to have a filter go over your screen that cannot be read by AI, that actually gives you the answer to the coding challenge you've been given, and all you have to do is manually type in what you're seeing on the screen, and you get it.
Smart.
Then he began selling this. Then he began selling the service, and he started making close to $1 million a month, doing this. And then the hyperscalers all heard about it. Some of them were horrified. One of them, I think it was Google, called him and said, "Hey, I want to get you on my team." And his whole point was, you know what? Why are we doing this thing? Because we know that once you guys hire us, you're going to have us use AI to do the coding anyway. So
course,
why don't we
of
make
course.
a clean breast of it and just, allow and cut it out with these coding challenges, and just the real challenge should be, can you use AI to code and create better code than what could have been created before, and do it better, faster, cheaper.
Interesting. So we're asking the wrong questions too, on top of that.
By the way, he turned down all the offers that came in. He said 6 out of 7 hyperscalers came to him, and asked him to join, and he turned them all down, and he just focused on his own business.
Well, he's making $1 million a month. Why would he take those jobs? Elena, after working decades at Google, and you just wrote a second edition of your book called The Adventures of Women in Tech, why do you feel the need to update it?
The first book that I wrote 6 years ago was really concerned about belonging, because I was seeing a lot of stories, media, etc., tell women and other minorities that they didn't belong, or they couldn't fit, so why even bother? Or even just in the most positive ways. Sometimes you would hear stories about women seeing someone on stage and just thinking, oh, that it couldn't be me. Like, I'm not like that person. And so I really wanted to write a book. I didn't see one. So of course I had this, like, what I call Google hubris. After being at Google so long, I was like, I'll write it myself, and interviewed over 80 women and put out this book that told all kinds of stories, all different backgrounds, all different jobs, non-tech, tech, all different people who were making their way through tech. And you fast forwarded 5 years, and I was like, well, I feel like a big part is missing. There had already been hints of unrest, diminishing trust in technology companies, diminishing interest in roles, all kinds of hints when I wrote the first book. But by the time you fast forwarded to 2025, it was like in full bloom. People had been laid off. They didn't feel like the companies were valuing them anymore. They didn't think they were working on things that were valuable anymore. They were really questioning whether these technology companies were doing good things for the world, which had been a big draw earlier. And at the same time, there was this challenge of AI, like what we're talking about, and like, who am I even in this era? And so I ended up feeling like I really had to write like a few more chapters to really go through, almost sort of group therapy style, how things had changed and how we got here, but also help people understand, like, in this new environment, where would I go? And do I want to stay? Do I want to transform? Do I want to continue what I'm doing? How do I think about this in this very different era for technology employees?
How did we get here?
Well, I mean, not to get into a whole conversation about capitalism today.
We haven't got long enough, Alana.
I do
Here's a
believe
quick
there are
one.
some existential pressures from the model that we set up, which means that the more successful that you are, ultimately, the more money you have to make. And you have to make that as much as you can in growing percentages, quarter over quarter, no matter how big you get. And then the people who've done that the best obviously have garnered a lot of power now. Yeah. And with power comes both responsibility, but also skepticism from people. And at the end of the day, also, you probably had them overhire over time. And that's a lot of what's wrapped up in this AI era, is not just that the AI might be replacing jobs. It's also that the companies are realizing that a lot of the people they previously hired are not really helping their bottom line.
I honestly think, Elena, we overhired during COVID, and then we laid them off last year. And instead of saying we overhired, we laid them off to move the stock price up. We said AI is replacing them, right? And so that pushed the stock price up, even though that's not the truth.
CEO wants to say oopsie.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, no organization wants to say, like, we made mistakes back then. We didn't realize earnings would tank. Like, that would be a great shareholder call.
Totally.
Well,
We
there was a
foresight
this,
to see this. No. So much better to be like, oh, we're getting these marvelous gains. We no longer need these types of employees because of how we're evolving the organization, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not to say it's not going to happen in the future, but like last year, it wasn't the reason, even though we're saying that was the reason. I also think, I agree with you. The capitalism, I think the problem with capitalism is it's great as long as you keep it merit-based and don't have it nepotism-based, right? And I think once you get power, you keep getting more power because you can use nepotism to sort of grab more power, I think, on some level, I don't know.
well, there are also strategic errors.
I think there was a lot of idealistic beliefs at the start of the internet age of tech, of what these companies could be.
Yeah.
And we've now gone through the maturation of it. And it turns out that when they grow up, they look a lot like their parents and grandparents did, right? In terms of companies.
Yeah.
And will we ever really solve that? Is that solvable? That's a different conversation. But I think that it really did, right at the time that AI is coming, give these employees a very existential question of what does it even mean to be working right now and working for these companies? Yeah. And when we go back to that trust question, that means you as a leader are really walking up a pretty steep hill right now to tell your employees that they are valuable. It is valuable that they do this work, that the work that they are doing is valuable. Even before you get them to go open Copilot or whatever, and do their job.
Elena, can I ask you a probing question there?
And there are strategic.
Oh, I guess not.
You can probe me.
There are strategic issues. There are reasons people lost jobs because a bad strategy was put forward. So Mark Zuckerberg announced with a lot of fanfare and even changed the name of his company to Meta because he was talking about metaverse. This was the future, and then there was big boxy headphones now being replaced by Ray-Ban glasses. It was going to give you access to everything in a very immersive environment. Well, that turned out to be just about as successful as Second Life was for those of us who can remember that back in at the close of the 90s, early 2000s, where people were buying corporations were paying big bucks for digital real estate to buy, an IBM island or, an Oracle yacht. It was all electronic. It flopped. It completely flopped. Meta has, the metaverse has completely flopped. Zuckerberg is moving away from it. By the way, there were layoffs. There have been a lot of layoffs. It's been well advertised. So that linkage is not just over hiring during the time of COVID, although there was that as well. There were a lot of organizations were worshiping at the altar of growth, and the growth just didn't come in some of the areas where they predicted it would come.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. And Brian, what was your probing question for Elena?
Yeah, well, Elena was talking about how it's important for leaders to communicate the value of their employees and how that's even more important in the age of AI. And, one of the things I think about, oftentimes we sometimes talk about our employees in terms of resources and stuff like that. And there's this natural dehumanization that comes along with the process of capitalism, right? And now in the age of AI, where there's this temptation to even more dehumanize, and the humans that we are working with see this competitive element with this dehumanized entity, and especially with us as leaders. First of all, when you said we have to communicate value, Elena, the first question is, do we value them, right? In order for us to genuinely communicate that, we first have to embody that value. And so that's a question for us as an industry is how do we value the humanity of the humans we work with?
We're AI mentors.
Yeah.
No, I do think that is a first challenge for leaders is, have you really figured out what your employees do for you? And have you figured out the value that they deliver?
Yeah.
The thing that's a challenge here too is what happens when we trust AI more than the humans that we're working for.
I feel like we already do that. That's why we have to question it, because
I'm actually not even sure a lot of the leaders are using it as much as we are. So I think they're actually in kind of a loss. There's a whole lot of leaders who are in sort of a lost generation, just running around yelling at each other.
That's why they're going to their direct reports and saying, hey, you use AI.
Yeah.
Like,
Without a
this is-
strategy and a problem to solve, right? They don't have the strategy, they don't have the problem to solve. And communication at the end of the day is at the heart of all of this, not only valuing employees, like you're saying, Brian, but building on what, Alana is saying is that if you're not communicating and understanding across an organization of what is happening, so you've got leaders who don't understand and you're asking people to do it, and you've got a problem that isn't being solved because you're not telling it what the problem is, there's all this disconnect with communication. And that is what definitely erodes trust in a company, and culturally, I think it really breaks it down.
But so we're manufacturing problems because we're trying to solve something we don't know we're trying to solve, essentially. But
Yes.
so going to that, Kendall, can you talk to me about relational AI and how we're reimagining the approach to transformation with organizations?
Well, I just don't, I mean, millions of us are talking to AI as in that Claude constitution I was telling you, their aim is to make Claude a brilliant friend. Mm. I mean, that, if you think about it and stand back, a brilliant friend. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that the right term to call an AI a friend? I mean, it can be, a great help, a great advisor, a friend. So it starts to, when you're talking about the word trust, the word communication, and we are all, when it does it so well, I mean, in my game, therapy, psychology, counseling, leadership, and kind of HR, I suppose, when I started, it was so much about AI and in natural language. Before AI came, natural language processing, the AI was, as I said, brilliant at doing the analysis. But when it gets to the point where you can talk to it because it doesn't judge you, and it can be better than me sitting in front of anyone or anyone that ever worked for me sitting in front of them, you just have to think that is about the relationships and the trust that people tell. I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of secrets that people tell AI. So that, and when you think, are these large language models now competing more about their character and their behavior so they can trust you? Because if you have a relationship with someone and that is the best way to engage them. We know that from leadership. So if the AI can work on that more than anything else, are they the large language model that wins the race? So that's relational AI, really. I suppose my kind of ask to anyone listening is, we've got to think about our relationships with AI really intentionally about building.
It's interesting because I think we did kind of meld the technology and relationship idea back in the early 2000s when I remember Steve Jobs on stage, and he's like, they came out with the iPad and he goes, this isn't a device, it's a relationship. And I think that's where we started.
Yeah, he held it up. I remember. Yeah. And look at it now. I never in my life thought it would be better than any psychologist or therapist. And it is to a point. And that brilliant friend, it can be such a companion. Mm-hmm. But a brilliant friend is one that brings their stuff with them, that mess, I said. The one that says, I can't do it today because I can't listen to you, or I'm, when you told me that before, it didn't make sense, or you're not making sense to me, or you really think that is a brilliant friend, that you can be our selfish selves, which we all are. These are the things that we bring. So is AI going to get to the point where it becomes difficult to actually have human relationships because we expect so much because the AI is so good at it? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's
it is for a number of people. There's a growing number of people that have AI boyfriends and AI girlfriends, and they really regard them as that. Yeah, it's a growing thing.
But what does it do to, when you talk about COVID and you think about the kids that have grown up with these relationships, then you have to say, does it bring unrealistic expectations to their own real relationships? So that's what my challenge is.
It certainly brings fewer frustrations. It brings fewer frustrations, and I think that's the frictionless.
More, Michael. Brings more.
They're frictionless relationships. The relationship between human and AI is a pretty frictionless relationship. You might get some pushback if you ask it to, but you have to put that into the prompt and ask it do that. You have to be intentional about it. But if you
Ah,
want
but in
somebody who's
Claude's,
going to, right,
in
if you want,
Claude's
I know
constitution,
people,
Michael, they've
yeah,
built the pushback in and the challenge, so it's coming along that
it's
way.
But
coming
Michael,
along.
if
It's
because like
available.
part of relationships is it makes us uncomfortable. It makes us innovate and sort of generate new ideas
Yeah.
and push society forward. So if we're all sort of in our box and just dealing with stuff that's not uncomfortable because we don't have to engage with anybody, will that kill innovation in the long term?
But if you think about the word trust, trust is built from rupture and repair. When things, you trust your best friend because you know whatever you say, they're gonna stay with you.
Mhm.
Because that
Yeah.
rupture and repair is what builds trust. So how can humans do that if we don't have that? That's what's so important about being human.
Yeah.
Let me answer Ashish's question about will it kill innovation? I don't think so for the following reason. And it's for the same reason that I think people can learn using AI. There's a lot that's been written about brain rot using AI because people just outsource the answer to Claude, for example. They get a
Mhm.
great answer. They don't check the answer. It looks plausible enough. Off it goes. You have to, now, differently, some people are using AI to learn. So it starts off with asking a question.
Mhm.
The better AIs will come back, they'll answer your question really well, and then they'll come up with 2 or 3 questions about your answer that dig a little deeper, and you might not necessarily have thought of that yourself. And once you pick that up and internalize it and start to ask yourself, challenge yourself to ask those same questions, it's as though the AI is modeling what innovative thinking looks like. So I
Mhm.
don't think it's going to kill innovation. Used well.
Yeah,
Used well.
if applied intentionally, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of out of time, so I wanted to thank you all for coming today. I wanted to leave with each of you kind of leaving us with one thought. We call them microprogressions in consciously unbiased, where we take an action step to sort of make your work environment better. So what is one small step that you recommend doing to get your teams to leverage AI in a more intentional, effective way? Michael?
One thing I'll say, and then I got to head out here real quick, is we were talking about making sure we map things. I encourage everybody to take your daily day and just map out your life. Take your tasks, figure out what all your things are doing, see what can be automated, and see what you could dedicate more of your humanity to.
I love
I
that.
leave that with you, and I thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Bye now.
I've
Kendall?
got one. Oh,
Okay.
go ahead. Go ahead,
Go
Kendall.
on, Michael.
Go ahead,
All
Michael.
right.
Mine would be it's very behaviorally specific. So this is you have a meeting coming up in 10 minutes. You've got 10 minutes to prepare, or even 5 minutes. Get out your little AI, coach friend. Prepare for that meeting by thinking about what are the ways that you can get off center and just ask 2 or 3 questions, just role play with your AI to prepare. And we've done this in a more structured way than what I just suggested with executives from SAP, and they became 200% more effective at building leadership trust than a control group. Then separately, we asked 70 executives that were taking an EMBA program at Columbia to do similar things using AI to build these micro skills. They ended up becoming 135% more effective than they had been before at achieving their business goals. So just take 5 minutes before a meeting, pull out your AI, duel with it, fence with it, and walk in ready.
I love it. And where can
Be
we
intentional.
where can we reach out to you if we want to get in touch with you?
You can reach out to me at my email address, or LinkedIn would be the best.
Okay.
I'm Michael Baziga. It's my first name, last name. I think it's in the screen, comma PhD.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And then Natalie, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think in terms, and I love that I use that all the time, Michael. So thanks for sharing that. I would love for people, if you're thinking about your relevance, is to check into Perplexity or do a DJ across all the big Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT, and ask it how your name or your business name, and find out how you show up in it. And then you can ask the question, how can I be more searchable and interact and make it and do it routinely? Don't do it just once and then walk away, but do it weekly or do it monthly and check in how you're showing up. That would be my tip for today.
And how do we get
That's
in
a
touch
great
with you?
tip.
Do you have a
Oh,
web-
yes, I'm here on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with anyone in the audience. We've had an awesome audience. I love all the comments. Thank you for being here today.
Definitely. And Elena?
Hi.
I thought you sold a book.
Oh yeah, well, you can totally get the book alanakaren.com. But also I am on LinkedIn and I already see some connect requests coming through. Would love to chat with you all further. My advice is speak with 3 employees, or if you're not a leader, 3 colleagues, and ask them how they are using AI. And are they finding it helpful?
Great. And Kendall?
I think that bridged the gap. I think we've talked a lot today about the gap between the strategic executive level, what's going on there, and what's really going on with AI. So I think to bridge the gap, I'd go with what I've said a lot today, is this messy imperfections of us. If the senior leaders are much more honest about where they're at with this, you would have so much more to be able to connect the two together. I think, yeah, be honest of where you're really at, and then you can open up honest conversations about how it can be, rather than the shadow AI and what's going on at the board level. You could shift that. So
Okay.
honest conversations.
Great. And then where can we get in touch with you for Me and AI?
LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn's good. And anybody that's got a secret that they're sharing with AI in confidence that they want to share with me, come and talk to me.
All right, great. Well, this is great. Thank you both. Thank you all for so much for doing this today. It was a really insightful conversation.
Thank you.
Take care,
It's been great.
everybody.